Hello everybody, my name is KingStix and today I have a very special video for you all on one of my favorite champions at the moment in the jungle. We're going to be looking at the best runes and items for Rammus Jungle. Let's go over his runes first. Overall, Rammus's runes don't change that much. He really only has 2 or 3 options max he can really take for his runes, and I'll show you those right now. Rammus's runes are always going to take Resolve for your main tree, taking Aftershock for your keystone, Unflinching, Conditioning, and then for the last one you have the choice of Overgrowth or Second Wind. Take Overgrowth if the enemy team has a lot of burst, take Second Wind if the enemy team is a little bit lower on damage. Rammus has 3 choices for his secondary tree. The first one is Precision, the second one Domination, and the third one is Sorcery. I personally use the Precision tree the most, Domination tree the second most, and the Sorcery tree I hardly ever use. Occasionally I will see other Rammus players use it, so I felt like it is worth mentioning. Let's go over the Precision tree first, since it is overall the better one to take on Rammus. Down the Precision tree, take Alacrity and Coup de Grace. The reason for Alacrity is Rammus actually does a lot of damage off of his passive. With the more armor he gets, it's pretty ridiculous. With the more attack speed, he'll be doing a lot of damage, especially when you have the enemy taunted. They won't be able to move and you'll just be pounding into them, getting a kill. Overall, taking Tenacity isn't that useful, especially since we are taking Unflinching. Bloodline is crap on Rammus because he doesn't rely off of lifesteal or anything like that. He is a tank. That is why we go for the Alacrity. And the reason why we go for Coup de Grace is because overall, it's stronger than Cut Down. Since Rammus is tanky, he's not going to be fighting many people with more HP than him. And taking Last Stand isn't going to be that great because overall Rammus isn't a tank that stays alive on low health in a team fight. That's more of something Poppy would take since she gets tankier the lower on health she gets. With Rammus, he's only tanky whenever his W is up. Overall, Rammus relies off of hitting a target, taunting them, and then killing them in a team fight. That is why I highly suggest Coup de Grace, because it will give you that extra bursting power you need to focus down a target and kill them. This is the main page I take on Rammus. It works in low elo, mid elo, and high elo. Overall, this will be your core build. It works for me in low and high elo. It's really good. One thing I will say about it is I will not go Precision for my secondary tree if the enemy team has a lot of CC, because it'll be very difficult to stay in there and auto attack and you're more just doing tanky or just bursting. Now in that case, whenever the enemy team has a ridiculous amount of CC, for my second tree, I'll go Domination or Sorcery. I'll show you the Domination page first. For this second page, you're still going to be taking Resolve for your main tree, going Aftershock, Unflinching, and Conditioning. That's all the same. On the last one, instead of going for Second Wind, I like to go for Overgrowth. Now, Overgrowth is very nice with taking Domination second tree because Domination relies more off of bursting a target rather than sustained damage. Overgrowth will overall give you more for what you need to survive a burst and stay in there and burst. Second Wind is overall better if you're taking attack speed, so if you're taking the Precision tree, because it helps you stay alive longer in a fight over time for you to do those auto attacks. If the enemy team has really low overall damage and you feel like they won't be able to burst you or anything like that, you can still go Second Wind, but I do prefer to take Overgrowth whenever I take Domination secondary tree. It feels more natural to me. Down the Domination tree, I always go for Cheap Shot. It's way better than Taste Blood. You don't need the healing on Rammus. And Rammus, it's kind of hard for him to use Sudden Impact. It would be nice whenever you're leaving a bush, but it's not really guaranteed. Going for the Cheap Shot is guaranteed because whenever you hit them with your Q, slow them, or taunt them, you will be doing lots of extra true damage. The next option really does vary. If the enemy jungler is someone who can counter jungle you, I really like to go for the Ghost Poro. If the enemy jungler is someone who doesn't really counter jungle you and you just want more AD or AP, I would go for the Eyeball Collection. This is better if the enemy team is really squishy and if you don't feel like they can counter jungle you very well. If you are the only tank on your team and if you don't feel like you're going to get counter jungled so you don't have to take the Ghost Poro, I would highly suggest going Indigenous Hunter for the reduced CDR on your active items and Trinket. This is very good for helping your team in a team fight because your Locket will always be off a cooldown. You can always use it in a fight. It's very good whenever your team does not have a tank. So just going back over that real quick, always take Cheap Shot. And for your second one, take Ghost Poro if you're going to get counter jungled, go Eyeball Collection if you just want more damage, and go Indigenous Hunter if you are the only tank on your team. I stay away from Relentless Hunter since I do max my Q first on Rammus. If you don't understand that, just go look at the data. Rammus Q max is the best by far. And Ravenous Hunter isn't worth it because Rammus doesn't really rely off of healing in a fight. He's more about tanking and bursting a target down. For the third Rammus rune page, I don't really recommend this, but I see some Rammus players having success with it. And for your secondary tree, you're going to take Sorcery. The main part of taking Sorcery on Rammus is to get your ultimate on a lower cooldown. So you're going to want to take Ultimate Hat. The second option is a little tricky. Naturally, you want to take Celerity because you gain bonus AD or AP based off of your bonus movement speed. So you're like, oh, you're going really fast. It's really useful. But in reality, it's just going to giving you bonus AD. And since your Q scales off of AP, it's really not going to be helping you out at all. So instead of taking Celerity, I usually like to go with Transcendence. It's going to be giving you 10% CDR at level 10. It's really nice because Rammus usually doesn't get up to 40% CDR on his build, so taking Transcendence is pretty good. And that is going to be it for the Rammus runes. Let's start going over his items. Always go for a Hunter's Talisman, Refillable, and Warding Totem on Rammus for your starting items. The Hunter's Talisman is amazing because whenever monsters hit you, when you have your W on, it will apply the burn effect and heal you, which is absolutely great. It'll keep you alive in the jungle and clearing quickly. The refillable is also essential. It's very important to have that whenever you're in a fight in the earlier mid game or when you're just clearing your monster camps in general. Even though starting 3 health potions might make it seem like it'd make him better in the early game, it really doesn't. If you're clearing properly, you shouldn't need to take 3 health potions. If you have to back on Rammus before you have 900 gold, and if you have at least 650 gold, go ahead and pick up Skirmisher's Saber, Stalker's Blade, or Tracker's Knife. Go for Skirmisher's Saber whenever the enemy team has a high damage enemy jungler, someone like a Kha'Zix, Shaco, or Lee Sin. This will be really valuable, especially in 1v1s and 2v2s, since whoever you smite will do 20% less damage to you for 4 seconds, which is absolutely crazy. It's like a little mini exhaust. If the enemy team doesn't have a high damage enemy jungler, or really that much damage on their team in general, if they're mostly tanky or damage over time characters, go ahead and go for Stalker's Blade. The movement speed that will give you will be more valuable than going for a Skirmisher's Saber. If you're playing in higher elo, mid diamond and up essentially, I usually go for Tracker's Knife since the words you can put out with it are extremely valuable. Your core items on Rammus are pretty much whatever jungle item you used to decide to go with, which would be Skirmisher's Saber, Stalker's Blade, or Tracker's Knife, and then upgrading it into Cinder Hulk. This is your bulk. It's going to make you tanky, do lots of burn damage, and is overall the first item you should be rushing. After you have your Cinder Hulk, you need to pick up your boots, preferably tier 2 boots, whether that be Ninja Tabbies, Swifties, or boots of mobility. I usually like to go for the Ninja Tabbies because overall they make you so tanky and it really bones the enemy AD carry. If the enemy AD carry doesn't auto attack that much, if it's someone like Jhin or Ezreal, you don't have to go for Tabbies. You can go for Swifties, especially against someone like Ezreal. If he goes Gauntlets, you'll still be moving pretty quick because of the slow resistance. Plus, Swifties are decent on Rammus since it does reduce the slow Rammus applies to himself whenever he uses his W. Every now and then, I will go boots of mobility, especially in lower elo, because they're really good for ganks in the early and mid game. It gets you in there a little bit quicker, but overall, in higher elo, I wouldn't do boots of mobility because if it's warded and you won't be able to gank anyways. In lower elo though, especially if you know the enemy laners are going to push, I highly recommend going boots of mobility, but in general, Ninja Tabbies are the way to go. After you have your jungle item in your boots, you need to be looking for your next core item. 3 main options. If the enemy team has at least 2 AD based champions on their team, I will go for Thornmail. If the enemy team has a really good mix of AP and AD, for example, if they have 2 AD but all the AP on their team is fed, I will go for a Warmog. Warmog is the in-between for armor and magic resist. It doesn't give either, but it gives so much health. Even if the enemy team does have a good mix of AP and AD, you can do a good job of negating both with just how much health you now have. If the enemy team has 4 or more AP characters on their team, for your next item, I would highly recommend going Adaptive Helm. I really love it. It works wonders against mages, especially mages that spam the same abilities like Ryze, Malzahar, Katarina, Akali. Any kind of mage really, it works wonders against. You'll take lots of reduced damage. Then we have some optional items. I'll go over the armor ones first. We have Frozen Heart, Dead Man's, Randuin's, and Righteous Glory. For the Frozen Heart, I will only get it if the enemy team has 2 or more AD carries or 2 or more high attack speed based champions, like maybe an Azir or Vayne, something like that. 2 champions that really rely on their attack speed to put out damage. For the Dead Man's play, I'm honestly not a huge fan of it, especially since I max Q first. But if the enemy team is 4 or more AD, I will typically pick it up after I have my Thornmail. If the enemy team has 2 or more high crit champions, like a Yasuo Caitlyn, I'll probably get a Randuin's after I get my core items. In general, I don't build Righteous Glory. I don't feel like it fits very well into Rammus's kit since he already does move so quickly. By taking Righteous Glory, you're moving past your team even faster, so it just kind of makes it hard for them to catch up, and you can make yourself out of position fairly quickly, since it is only a solo speed up. If the enemy team has 4 or more AP on their team, after I get one of my core items like I mentioned earlier, I will go for a Spirit Vestige if I have a healer on my team like a Nami or Soraka. If I don't have a healer on my team, I'm not going to build Spirit Vestige. In the case of me not having a healer and they have 4 more AP, after my Adaptive Helm, I'll go for an Abyssal Mask. If you're in a position where you can't team fight against the enemy team and the game's gone past the 38-40 minute mark and you just can't win a team fight, the enemy team is just a little bit stronger in team fights and they've shown that consistently, I'd highly suggest selling your 6th item, or for your 6th item, getting a ZZ Rot Portal. It'll really help to keep your base alive, or if you already have the map pressure but you can't win a team fight, I'll put it on a certain side of the map, or I'll split push on Rammus. Rammus is extremely difficult to catch when he has a ZZ Rot because it gives massive movement speed bonus whenever he's near a turret. Whenever you're running away, you're going to be running past a turret at some point on Rammus, activate Q, and you get away. And if you are the only tank on your team, you need to be getting a Locket. And if you are the only tank on your team and you have a hyper AD carry, you should also get a Knight's Vow as well. This will cut into your overall tankiness, but it is worth it if you don't have a tank on your team. And that is going to conclude this video. If you guys did enjoy this video and want to support the channel, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me out immensely. My name is KingStix. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.